Okay, picture this. You sit down to study, and within 5 minutes, you feel your actual soul leaving your body. Next thing you know, you've lost an entire hour just scrolling on your phone. Sound familiar? Well, here's the thing. Your brain is not broken. It's just hijacked. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to dive into some incredibly powerful, science-backed strategies from top educational researchers to literally rewire your brain so it actually craves learning. Let's take you from distracted to dedicated. So it really is the ultimate modern dilemma, right? Why on earth is 3 hours of scrolling totally effortless, but 15 minutes of studying feels like pure, unadulterated torture? Look, you're not lazy. Your brain has simply been hijacked by the way modern apps manipulate your neurotransmitters. Specifically, we're talking about dopamine. Now, dopamine is that feel-good chemical your brain releases when you experience pleasure. Honestly, it's like a heat-seeking missile, constantly on the hunt for its next quick target. And that brings us to this massive dopamine imbalance we're all fighting. Just look at this breakdown. On one side, social media delivers an instant hit, requires absolutely zero effort, and offers constant, endless novelty. Your brain is essentially getting an all-you-can-eat feast. But on the other side, studying. It demands high effort for a massively delayed reward. Because your brain is completely starved for instant gratification, that delayed payoff of studying feels literally impossible to reach. It just sits dead last at the absolute bottom of your brain's pleasure scale. But don't worry, we have a roadmap to fix this imbalance. Today, we're covering 5 steps: hacking dopamine, before studying, active learning, memory consolidation, and finally, navigating mental traps. Let's jump in. Step 1. Hacking dopamine. Okay, so to study effectively, you've got to reset that pleasure scale. You can't just force yourself to stare at a book when your brain is literally screaming for TikTok, right? We have to lower the baseline first. So start with a 15-minute daily dopamine detox of pure, unadulterated boredom. I'm talking 0 devices. Sit and stare at a blank wall if you have to. No phone, no music, no podcasts, nothing. When you first try this, fair warning, it is going to feel excruciating. You are literally going through withdrawal from constant stimulation. But doing this daily lowers your dopamine baseline so much that smaller, quieter rewards, like finally understanding a tough new concept, actually start to feel really good again. Now, once that baseline is lowered, you need to actively raise the dopamine level of the studying itself. How? Temptation bundling. Basically, you bundle your absolute favorite snack or that ridiculously overpriced coffee so they only exist when the books are open. The second the study session ends, the fun stops too. Also, treat your brain to micro-rewards. Just drawing a physical checkmark after finishing a short section feels great. Even taking notes by hand with different colored pens gives your brain that visual variety it's craving. And if you can connect the topics to your actual personal interests, suddenly learning transforms from a massive chore into a game. All right, moving on to step 2, before studying. So you definitely don't want to just sit down and open a textbook cold. You need to warm up the engine. And you can do that by leveraging something called the pre-testing effect. Check this out. A study of over 1,500 people showed that deliberately failing to answer questions before reading the chapter actually boosts your final score. I know, it sounds totally crazy to test yourself on stuff you haven't even learned yet, but when you guess the answers and get them embarrassingly wrong, it gives your brain a very specific gap to fill. It basically puts a giant spotlight on the information when you finally do encounter it in the text. And listen, your physical setup is just as vital. Environment is absolutely everything here. Pick one dedicated spot so your brain instantly associates that physical location with pure focus. Put that phone on airplane mode. Seriously, kill the notifications. Oh, and here is a massive tip regarding sound. Use white noise or classical music, but ditch absolutely anything with a beat. Research actually shows that rhythmic background noise actively destroys your concentration and makes learning incredibly inefficient. So skip the pop playlist for now. That brings us to step 3, active learning. All right, now that we're perfectly prepped, let's look at how to actually study efficiently without wasting hours of your life. This is really where we separate the amateurs from the pros. Passive reading and highlighting, they just trick you into a false sense of competence. You think you know it just because it's right in front of your eyeballs. But active retrieval, like using flashcards and quizzing yourself, forces your brain to actually pull the information out, which physically strengthens those neural pathways. And if you really want to level up, try interleaving. Mix your subjects up during a single session. It forces your brain to continually forget and re-retrieve, building deep, long-lasting retention. And if you want to lock a concept in for good, you've got to try the Feynman Technique. Studies actually show that simply expecting to teach a topic forces your brain into a much more logical structure. It's super simple. Take your topic and explain it out loud as if you're teaching a 5-year-old. If you stumble or use big confusing words, boom, you've found a gap in your knowledge. Go back, review it, and refine that explanation until it is crystal clear. Now, combine that active learning with structured timing, like the 50-10 rule or maybe 25-minute Pomodoros. Science proves time and time again that breaking learning into short, intensely focused, repeated sessions beats a 10-hour cramming marathon every single time. Think of your brain like a muscle, right? It desperately needs that completely disconnected 10-minute rest period to recover before jumping into the next set. Which leads us perfectly into step 4, memory consolidation. Let's talk about the aftermath of your study session and look at how the biology of memory actually works inside your skull. When you're actively studying, everything you just learned is temporarily sitting right here in your hippocampus. It gets encoded through the repeated firing of active neurons. But here is the major catch. It's totally temporary. The information is basically just sitting in your brain's waiting room, waiting to be processed. For permanent retention, that fragile new information absolutely has to be transferred over to the neocortex. This is the area of the brain where knowledge is stored for the long term, where it gets integrated with the concepts you already know. But, and this is a huge but, this transfer does not happen while you are staring at a textbook. It primarily happens while you are offline. We're talking resting, taking a true break, or most importantly, sleeping. And the timeline to trigger this transfer is honestly fascinating. Research shows that doing an intense exercise session exactly 4 hours after studying, followed by deep sleep, physically locks those memories in. There was this wild study where people had to learn 90 new associations. The participants who did intense cycling 4 hours later retained significantly more than the people who exercised immediately or those who didn't exercise at all. Timing is quite literally everything. And guys, this is the exact biological reason why spacing works while cramming completely fails. A 2006 study looked at a class of medical residents who were learning a really complex surgical suturing technique. One group crammed all the training into a single day. The other group studied for the exact same amount of time, but they spaced it out over 4 weeks. When they tested them a month later, the spaced group performed significantly better. Your brain physically needs that time between sessions to rebuild and strengthen those neural pathways in the neocortex. Finally, we have step 5, mental traps. Because let's be real, knowing all this cool brain science won't help one bit if your motivation just evaporates the second things get hard. Consider this. Researchers at Stanford found a massive 60% increase in creative ideas when people stopped staring at a wall and simply walked away. They had people try to solve creative problems while sitting down versus walking, and the walkers completely outperformed the sitters. So when you hit a wall, please don't just smash your head against it. Step away, take a quick walk, and let your brain stop recycling the exact same stuck idea. Another huge trap is emotional panic. When you start feeling overwhelmed, use a technique called self-distancing. Basically, talk to yourself like you're giving advice to a close friend. It instantly removes the emotional crisis and lets your brain be logical. And when your motivation starts fading, use mental contrasting. Don't just sit there and visualize getting a perfect A on your test. Visualize the exact obstacle that usually ruins it for you, like opening TikTok, and create a strict if-then rule. Like, if I reach for my phone, then I must solve one more practice question first. You have to give your brain instructions for the emergency exit before the fire happens. The overarching lesson from all this research really boils down to this. Your brain isn't broken, it's just been hijacked. Discipline isn't some magic trait you're born with. It's just knowing how to work with your biology rather than fighting against it. When you actively reset your dopamine, utilize active recall, and actually respect your brain's biological need for sleep and spacing, you are basically playing the academic game on easy mode. So, knowing what you now know about the dopamine imbalance, active recall, and the magic of your neocortex, you really can't blame laziness anymore. What is the one specific, science-backed technique you are going to change in your very next study session? Transform that environment, put the phone in another room, and take back your focus. Thanks for checking out this explainer, and until next time, keep learning smarter.